There is a kind of love that does not break your heart all at once. It slowly teaches your heart to question itself. Why does someone who once felt so close suddenly become so distant? Why do their words sometimes make you feel deeply loved, only for their silence to leave you wondering whether any of it was real? Why does walking away feel almost impossible, even when staying hurts more than leaving? If these questions have been quietly following you for weeks, months, or even years, then there is a reason you found this video. Many people believe they are simply unlucky in love. They blame timing, they blame fate, they blame themselves. But the truth is often much deeper than that. There is a hidden emotional pattern that repeats itself in thousands of relationships across the world, and most people never recognize it while they are living through it. They only see the pain, they never see the map. That is exactly why this conversation matters. Loving someone with an avoidant attachment style can feel unlike any relationship you have ever experienced. In the beginning, everything feels effortless. The connection seems almost impossible to explain. It feels natural, exciting, and strangely familiar, as though your souls recognized each other before your minds did. Then slowly, something changes. The warmth becomes unpredictable. The closeness begins to fade. Conversations become shorter. Distance quietly replaces certainty. Suddenly you find yourself working harder for the same affection that once came so easily. The confusing part is that nothing dramatic seems to happen. There is no clear ending, no obvious reason, just a growing silence that slowly fills every space between you, and that silence becomes louder than words. Many people trapped in this cycle begin searching for answers in the wrong places. They think they need to become more attractive, more patient, more understanding, more available, more perfect. They believe that if they can only find the right words or make fewer mistakes, the relationship will return to the beautiful beginning they still carry in their hearts. But before I tell you why that rarely works, stay with me, because what comes next will completely change how you see this. The greatest misunderstanding about avoidant relationships is believing that the story is only about the other person. It is not. It is also about the invisible emotional journey happening inside you. Every confusing message, every canceled plan, every unexpected withdrawal, every brief return of affection begins shaping your thoughts, your emotions, and eventually your identity in ways you may not even notice. That is why this relationship can feel so impossible to explain to other people. From the outside, it may look simple. From the inside, it feels like an emotional maze with no exit. Psychologists have spent decades studying attachment patterns, and one surprising discovery continues to appear. Human beings are often more emotionally attached to unpredictable rewards than consistent ones. When affection comes and goes without warning, the brain can begin chasing the feeling instead of questioning the pattern. That is one reason these relationships can become so difficult to leave, even when they no longer bring peace. Yet psychology only tells part of the story. There is another layer, a quieter layer, a spiritual layer. Sometimes life places certain people in our path not only to bring love, but also to reveal the places within ourselves that still seek validation, certainty, and emotional safety from someone else. Painful relationships often become unexpected teachers, not because suffering is the goal, but because awareness changes everything. Most people will never hear this, not because it is hidden, but because they stop too soon. They leave after hearing simple advice like, just move on, or find someone better. Those words sound easy. Real healing is not. Real healing asks deeper questions. Why did this connection affect you so deeply? Why did their distance feel like a loss of your own worth? Why did moments of affection become more powerful than months of inconsistency? Those answers are rarely found by blaming another person alone. They are found by understanding the emotional journey that quietly unfolds inside anyone who loves an avoidant. That journey is far more predictable than it appears. It follows recognizable stages. Each stage brings its own hopes, fears, and painful lessons. Each stage slowly changes the way you think about love, about yourself, and about the meaning of emotional closeness. Without realizing it, many people move through these stages believing they are completely alone, when in reality, millions of others have walked the very same path. Over the next few moments, you will discover those 5 emotional stages one by one. You will understand why the beginning feels almost magical, why confusion replaces certainty, why letting go feels harder than logic can explain, why self-doubt quietly enters the heart, and finally, why true freedom begins only after one powerful inner shift that very few people ever recognize. By the end of this journey, you will not simply understand avoidant attachment more clearly, you will understand yourself more clearly. You may even recognize that some of the questions keeping you awake at night were never really about another person. They were invitations leading you back toward your own peace, your own strength, and your own emotional freedom. If that is the kind of clarity you have been searching for, then you are in the right place. Welcome to the channel. If you believe psychology, emotional healing, spiritual wisdom, and personal growth can transform the way we love and the way we live, subscribe and join this growing community, because the understanding you gain here could change far more than one relationship. It could change the relationship you build with yourself forever. The relationship does not usually fall apart in one dramatic moment. It changes so quietly that many people do not notice it until they are already questioning everything. One day the messages are warm, the conversations feel effortless, and the future seems full of possibility. Then, without warning, something shifts. Replies become shorter, plans become uncertain. Affection starts arriving in small, unpredictable pieces. The hardest part is that there is no clear explanation. Do not skip this part, because this is where most people make the biggest mistake. At first, you tell yourself they are just busy. Everyone needs space sometimes. That sounds reasonable, but then the pattern repeats. Every time the connection becomes deeper, every time vulnerability grows, distance quietly follows. You begin wondering whether you said something wrong, whether you moved too fast, whether you expected too much. Little by little, your peaceful heart is replaced by a restless mind, searching for answers that never seem to come. This is where many people misunderstand avoidant attachment. They assume emotional distance means love has disappeared. In many cases, that is not what is happening at all. For someone with strong avoidant tendencies, deep intimacy can trigger an unconscious alarm. Closeness, which feels comforting to one person, may feel overwhelming to another. Their nervous system begins treating emotional dependence like a threat, even when the relationship itself is healthy. Pulling away becomes a form of emotional protection rather than a carefully planned decision. A surprising fact that few people hear is that the human brain often reacts to emotional closeness the same way it reacts to physical danger when old attachment wounds are activated. Researchers studying attachment patterns have found that for some avoidant individuals, increased intimacy can unconsciously increase stress instead of security. That means the very moment you feel the relationship becoming stronger may be the exact moment they feel an overwhelming need to create distance. Here is the truth nobody says out loud. You were never broken. You were never asking for too much. 2 different attachment systems were responding to the same relationship in completely different ways. Still, understanding this does not immediately remove the pain, because while they are stepping back to feel safe, you often move forward hoping to bring the closeness back. That is where the emotional cycle becomes even more powerful. You begin remembering the beginning, the laughter, the effortless conversations, the warmth that once seemed so natural. Instead of questioning the pattern, you start chasing the memory. You send longer messages. You become more patient. You give more understanding. You convince yourself that one perfect conversation will bring everything back to the way it was. Without realizing it, your energy slowly shifts from enjoying love to earning it. That change is exhausting. Every small sign of affection suddenly feels enormous. A kind message brightens your entire day. A few hours of emotional closeness make you believe everything is finally getting better. Then the distance returns again, and the emotional crash feels even heavier than before. There is a lesser-known psychological principle called intermittent reinforcement, and it explains why this cycle becomes so difficult to escape. When rewards arrive unpredictably instead of consistently, the brain can become even more attached to receiving them. This pattern has been studied in both behavioral psychology and human relationships. Uncertainty can strengthen emotional dependency because the next moment of affection always feels just close enough to keep hoping. That does not mean your love is fake. It means your brain is trying to solve an emotional puzzle that never seems to stay solved. As this continues, something unexpected begins happening. The avoidant partner often feels increasingly pressured by your efforts, while you feel increasingly desperate because of their distance. Each reaction unintentionally strengthens the other. One person withdraws to feel safe, the other pursues to feel secure. Neither person truly wants to hurt the other, yet both become trapped inside a dance neither understands. The saddest part is that many people mistake this emotional roller coaster for proof that the relationship is deeply special. They believe the intensity means the love must be extraordinary. But intensity and emotional safety are not the same thing, and recognizing that difference may become one of the most important lessons of your life. And what I am about to share next, nobody talks about this, because the next stage is where confusion quietly transforms into self-doubt, and that changes everything. The most painful stage does not begin when they pull away. It begins when you slowly start pulling away from yourself. That change is almost invisible at first. You still smile, you still hope, you still believe things can improve. But deep inside, a quiet question begins repeating itself over and over again. Why am I not enough? Do not skip this part, because this is where the deepest emotional wound is often created. Repeated emotional distance has a way of changing the conversation inside your own mind. Instead of noticing someone else's inability to stay emotionally present, you begin examining every part of yourself. You replay old conversations. You wonder whether you asked for too much attention. You question your personality, your appearance, your patience, even your worth. The relationship slowly stops feeling like two people with different attachment patterns. It starts feeling like a personal failure. This is one of the greatest emotional illusions created by inconsistent love. When affection disappears without explanation, the human mind naturally searches for a cause, and because you cannot see what is happening inside another person's emotional world, you often choose the only explanation that feels available. You blame yourself. Yet another person's emotional limitations are not proof of your emotional value. Those are two completely different things, even though pain tries to convince you they are the same. A surprising psychological finding is that chronic emotional uncertainty activates many of the same brain regions involved in physical pain. That means your heart is not simply being dramatic. Your nervous system is responding to repeated emotional disconnection as a genuine threat. This is one reason why reassurance begins feeling less like comfort and more like survival. No matter how much reassurance you receive, it never lasts very long because the deeper wound has not been healed. Here is the truth nobody says out loud. Your worth has never been measured by someone else's ability to receive your love. Their fears are not your identity. Their distance is not your definition. Still, when you love deeply, that truth can be incredibly difficult to believe. You begin waiting for every message. You analyze every word. A delayed reply feels personal. A warm conversation feels like hope has returned. Your emotional balance slowly becomes dependent on another person's emotional availability. Without realizing it, you hand them the power to decide whether your day feels peaceful or painful. That is the silent cost of constantly seeking reassurance. Every answer brings temporary relief, but the fear quietly returns because reassurance cannot replace inner security. The more you search outside yourself for certainty, the further you drift from the place where lasting peace actually begins. Then something unexpected happens. Not because they suddenly change, because you do. One day, often after countless emotional highs and lows, you become tired in a different way. Not angry, not bitter, simply exhausted. You realize that love should not require endless guessing. You recognize that no amount of chasing can create emotional safety if the other person is unable to meet you there. This realization does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives with silence. A quiet moment where your heart whispers, "I cannot keep abandoning myself just to keep someone else close." That is the turning point that changes everything. You stop trying to force conversations that no longer flow naturally. You stop measuring your value by another person's consistency. You stop treating love like something that must constantly be earned, and in that space, healing quietly begins. Spiritually, this is one of the most powerful moments in any relationship. Letting go is often misunderstood as giving up, but real letting go is something very different. It is releasing the belief that your peace depends on controlling another person's choices. It is returning your attention to the one place where real transformation has always been possible, your own heart. As attachment begins to loosen, something beautiful happens. You breathe differently. You think differently. You no longer wake each day wondering whether someone else will choose you. You begin choosing yourself with the same kindness you spent giving away so freely. This does not mean you stop loving. It means your love is no longer driven by fear. It becomes rooted in freedom instead of desperation. And from that place, whether someone stays or leaves no longer determines your ability to feel whole. And what I am about to share next, nobody talks about this, because the deepest truth is not about avoidance at all. It is about the hidden spiritual lesson every difficult relationship is trying to teach, and once you see it, you will never look at love the same way again. There is one question that quietly stays in the hearts of so many people long after the relationship changes. Did they ever realize how much they hurt me? That question can keep someone emotionally trapped for years because it feels as though healing depends on knowing the answer. But do not skip this part, because understanding what is really happening beneath avoidant behavior can completely change the way you carry your pain. Many avoidant people are not intentionally trying to create emotional suffering. That does not mean the pain they cause is any less real. It simply means the source of their behavior often begins far below conscious awareness. For someone with deeply rooted avoidant patterns, emotional closeness can activate old fears they may not even recognize. Instead of experiencing intimacy as comfort, their nervous system may quietly interpret it as pressure, dependence, or the risk of losing themselves. That is why emotional distance is usually an act of protection rather than cruelty. They pull away to reduce internal discomfort, not always realizing that every step backward creates confusion and heartbreak for the person reaching toward them. Their silence often feels like rejection to you, while to them it may feel like the only way to regain emotional balance. Two people experience the same moment in completely different ways, and neither fully understands the invisible battle taking place inside the other. A lesser-known insight from attachment research is that many avoidant individuals genuinely care for their partners even while creating distance. Their emotions do not necessarily disappear when they withdraw. In fact, some studies suggest they suppress emotional awareness as a coping strategy, making it difficult even for them to understand what they are feeling. That inner disconnection can make healthy communication incredibly difficult, even when love is present. Here is the truth nobody says out loud. Understanding someone else's wounds does not mean you must live inside them. Compassion is not the same as self-sacrifice. You can recognize another person's pain without allowing it to become your permanent home. That balance is where true emotional maturity begins. You stop seeing people as heroes or villains. You stop believing that one person is entirely right and the other is entirely wrong. Instead, you begin recognizing two nervous systems, each carrying different fears, different survival strategies, and different childhood experiences. One fears being abandoned, the other fears being emotionally consumed. Both are hurting, but their pain speaks completely different languages. This perspective does not erase accountability. Healthy boundaries still matter. Respect still matters. Consistency still matters. Love cannot thrive without emotional responsibility from both people. Compassion should never require you to abandon your own well-being. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for another person is allow them to face the consequences of their own emotional patterns while you continue protecting your peace. Then something even deeper begins to unfold. You realize this relationship was never only about another person. It was also revealing something inside you. Every painful relationship acts like a mirror. It reflects the places where fear quietly lives beneath the surface. Fear of not being chosen, fear of being left behind, fear that love must constantly be earned. These fears often existed long before this relationship began. The relationship simply brought them into the light where they could finally be seen. Healing begins to change the moment you stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and begin asking, "What is this experience trying to teach me about myself?" That question shifts your attention away from chasing answers that another person may never give and toward discovering strength that has always existed within you. One beautiful spiritual truth is that emotional freedom grows as your identity becomes less dependent on someone else's approval. The more your sense of worth comes from within, the less another person's choices control your inner world. Their acceptance becomes a gift rather than a necessity. Their rejection loses the power to define who you are. This is where real transformation begins, not when someone finally changes, not when they finally return, but when your own heart no longer waits for permission to feel complete. And what I am about to share next, nobody talks about this. Because the final lesson is not about fixing relationships. It is about choosing a kind of peace that no one can take away, and that changes everything. The journey you have just walked through is much bigger than understanding avoidant attachment. It is about understanding yourself. You began with the excitement of a connection that felt rare and deeply meaningful. Then came the slow rise of confusion where consistency disappeared and certainty became difficult to hold on to. After that came the exhausting stage of chasing the love you once believed would return if you only tried a little harder. Then self-doubt quietly entered, convincing you that someone else's distance somehow reflected your worth. And finally, the turning point arrived, where healing became more important than holding on, and peace became more valuable than constantly seeking answers. Every one of those stages carries a lesson. Not because pain is something anyone should seek, but because awareness has the power to break cycles that confusion never can. Once you understand the pattern, you stop blaming yourself for every moment of distance. You stop confusing emotional intensity with emotional security. Most importantly, you begin recognizing that love should never require you to abandon your own peace just to keep someone else close. The deepest truth is beautifully simple. Genuine love creates emotional safety. It allows honesty to grow. It creates room for both people to be seen, heard, and valued. It does not leave one person constantly wondering where they stand. Every relationship will face challenges, but healthy love does not make chronic uncertainty feel normal. If there is one message I hope stays with you long after this video ends, it is this. Your value has never depended on another person's ability to stay emotionally available. Your heart is worthy of consistency. Your kindness is worthy of respect. Your love is worthy of being received without endless confusion or emotional guessing. Everything you just heard, you already knew. Deep inside, you just needed someone to remind you. Healing does not happen the day someone finally understands your pain. Healing begins the day you stop asking another person to give you the peace that only you can build within yourself. That is the moment your life quietly changes. You stop chasing validation. You stop living in fear of losing people. And you begin creating relationships that are rooted in trust, honesty, and emotional freedom instead of uncertainty. Before you go, read this one last thought carefully. This might be the most important message in this entire video. The greatest love story you will ever experience is not the one where someone finally chooses you. It is the one where you finally choose yourself without guilt, without fear, and without believing that doing so makes you selfish. Because the moment you truly value your own peace, you also make space for healthier love to enter your life. If this conversation helped you feel understood or helped you see your own journey with fresh eyes, I would truly appreciate it if you took a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are building a community focused on psychology, emotional healing, spirituality, and personal growth, where every video is created to help you find greater clarity, stronger self-worth, and lasting inner peace. Until next time, take care of your heart, trust your journey, and never forget that the peace you are searching for has been growing inside you all along.